The trailers for this game had me so hyped. Industria 2 is an indie sci-fi FPS single-player game with incredible graphics, immersive audio design, and a world that seems brimming with potential. But right now, the game's reviews are barely clinging on to a mixed rating, and there's a ton of complaints about performance, empty feeling levels, unfinished assets, and a sense that the developers were chasing an ambition that they couldn't afford to catch. But is that the whole story with Industria 2? Are the reviews being too harsh, or is there a silver lining here? Let's find out. Now, I was instantly drawn to Industria 2 when I saw its early gameplay teasers. I'm a sucker for pretty looking sci-fi games, and the trailers made it look like it could contend with some of the best looking sci-fi FPS games of the last decade. But when it finally launched, I could absolutely see a lot of the rough edges where it's clear the devs just didn't have time or resources to polish everything in the environment. But everywhere else, I mean, just look at these places. A massive brutalist railway looming over a quaint city, robotic monstrosities bubbling out of a man-made structure like an alien cancerous growth, a serene post-apocalyptic forest pathway with overgrowth hiding a civilization in ruin. When Industria 2's environments sing, they really sing. The devs have also nailed that alien tech meets post-war European and Soviet aesthetic that games like Half-Life 2 and the Metro series are known for. Industria 2 brings its own sort of liminal space horror aesthetic to it, and it really does make the whole world feel like it's somewhere in the uncanny valley, but at least in my opinion, in a good way. Now, the story of the game involves multiversal travel, rogue AI, and other sci-fi elements that give it this otherworldly quality, so the look and feel of the world kind of fits perfectly. The sound design is also impressively good. The devs utilize Wise to create an immersive audio environment with reflections calculated in real time. When you're exploring a cave in particular, it sounds truly amazing and places you in that environment without a doubt, and there's not a lot of other games where I can point to the audio being this good. Now, when it comes to the story, I haven't finished the game yet, I want to be clear, but so far it's pretty darn intriguing. The basic premise is that multi-dimensional time travel was discovered, and an AI that was used to sort which dimensions were safe to visit goes out of control and started causing all sorts of crazy stuff to happen. Or at least I think that's the gist of it, because, well, there is a bit of a problem with the presentation of this story. Most of the narrative is told as a conversation between you and an NPC that you're traveling with, but that NPC can actually get stuck on the levels that you're on, and you could be completely unaware of this. So you'll be in the middle of a major bit of important exposition only for her dialogue to be inaudible because she's stuck somewhere behind you.
Maybe if I would have been there, I don't know.
There's also triggers that you'll walk through that'll start the next line of dialogue, but they can actually happen before the current line of dialogue is finished, so characters will just jump ahead in the conversation like you skipped ahead in a YouTube video.
But when you say random combinations, what do all these random dimensions made out of?
And these can be important bits of conversation. And what makes this even more weird is that when you travel through the levels, there are moments that you can talk to your companion and get extra dialogue that goes deeper into the lore and backstory. They're kind of like side conversations if you want to delve into it more. But they also lock you in place while you're talking, and they can't be skipped once the conversation starts. So on one hand, you have these vital story elements that are getting interrupted by bugs and weird level triggers. And on the other hand, there's conversations that force your full attention, you can't skip them, and they are not essential to the story at all. It's just kind of a big, messy presentation. Now, one of the fun little quality of life elements that this game has is this cool diegetic inventory system. It is, though, a bit weird when the character that you're traveling with completely shatters the fourth wall and starts explaining the gameplay mechanics of it like it's a standard video game tutorial.
Open the bag and I'll show you how it works. Your crafting materials are shown above. Click on a material to see your available options.
With that weirdness aside though, the entire inventory system, including active weapons, the crafting system, the ammo you get, is basically a physical backpack that you have to put down to actually interact with. It doesn't quite give you the same level of total freedom that you might find on games like Gloomwood, as certain items have to go in particular slots versus just being an open grid, but it is a lot more immersive than just another menu screen. I think they struck the perfect balance between making it feel like you're actually moving stuff around in a physicalized game world without turning it into a cumbersome system. Now, when it comes to the gameplay and general combat, I was inspired to take a detour and go back and play a little bit of Industria 1 just to get a point of comparison. Many of the reviews of Industria 2 that I saw complained that the game felt like a downgrade when compared to the first one. And while I think you could make that argument when you're comparing the finished quality of the scope and scale of the world, I think they actually improved many of the gameplay mechanic areas that the first game glossed over. The gunplay in particular is much more punchy and weighty. The shotgun and rifle do some serious damage to enemies, and you can actually feel it when you play. The combat in the first game was fine, but just not particularly engaging or immersive, and I think they just improved a lot of that for Industria 2. Now, performance issues have been a complaint in the reviews. I have a pretty beefy PC, I was running it on max settings, and really the worst hitches I saw were when the game autosaves, which is not uncommon. Many games have a little bit of a pause when they autosave. It is using Unreal Engine 5's Lumen lighting system though, which is notoriously demanding and generally hard to dial in, but I would imagine if you're on a mid or even low tier PC, you're probably going to end up with some performance problems just based on the comments and feedback I've seen so far. Now, circling back to the game's world and graphics, there are a lot of side rooms and paths in this game that just end up being dead ends. The majority of them just seem like poorly hidden areas for the enemies to spawn in so that they're not immediately in view when you turn a corner. But they just feel like they could be better disguised, or maybe the levels could have been a little bit smaller to allow for more detailed layouts. While at the same time, there's also plenty of levels that feel extremely well fleshed out. If anything, it's kind of the difference between the game's two extremes here that make the issues stand out more. It's very much like they said, hey, we have time to make 50 levels, and they shot for that goal and ended up halfway through that they were going to have to massively speed up their workflow. And so the first half of the levels are really well done and the second half are not so well done. And so you kind of keep jumping back and forth between really amazingly designed experiences and then ones that clearly didn't get as much TLC. Like this river looks incredible with a detailed shoreline and a stunning distant view, but when you turn around to face the edge of the playable space, the same river's shoreline is a low detail sandbank with a foggy horizon that's just clearly hiding the fact that there's nothing rendered in the distance. This part of the game looks incredible, and then other parts in the exact same level don't, and it's that sort of juxtaposition that I think makes things feel really disjointed. In a lot of ways, Industria 2 feels like it's kind of on the knife's edge of balancing between ambition and resources. One minute you're enjoying an incredible vista with insane machine architecture towering over the streets of a small city. The next you're in what feels like a fan fiction version of Half-Life 2 Citadel from 10 years ago. And I can't deny that it is frustrating having my immersion constantly broken by this juxtaposition. But at the same time, its flashes of brilliance come in waves, and it's clear that there's a lot of passion put into this project, and the idea for it is incredible. It's just feels kind of unfinished. I think we're pushing into a realm now where indie devs are capable of achieving extremely high-level visuals, but they don't have the big studio capacity to maybe execute that on as big of a scale as they want to or think they can. And the current player base that's used to getting indie titles is now getting used to higher production quality from those titles. So while some of the rough spots in Industria 2 might have held up in the 2000s or 2010s, I think in today's day and age, players are expecting a bit more, even from smaller studios. Now, despite its flaws, Industria 2 gives me hope that there's still a space for these kind of quirky and ambitious indie titles that maybe don't achieve the full vision that they're going for, but get close to it. It's clear that the dev team behind this game is talented. They have a cool vision. They just kind of fell a little bit short of, I think, what they're ultimately aiming for. And I hope that's not too much of a detriment for them being able to further update this game or continue making more games down the road. I've been enjoying my time with it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it ends. Hopefully the devs are planning to sort out some of the performance issues and janky aspects to the game, especially with some of those dialogue sequences. I wouldn't say that the mixed reaction on Steam is unjustified, but Beneath the Jank is a very interesting game that's well worth checking out if you're into the indie feeling sci-fi FPS genre. And up next, if you want to check out another game that is doing some pretty wild stuff in the indie space, check out Mouse PI for Hire. I did a full video review on it here, and it's definitely worth checking out. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.